So, I grew up in Vermont. I was an athlete my whole life. Ski racing ultimately became my focus, and I was ski racing in college. I was a sophomore, and I fell and hit a lift tower and broke my back. And it was, I had no idea about spinal cord injuries. I didn't know anybody with a spinal cord injury. I didn't know anything about adaptive sports, and so I thought, you know, I had this accident and my life is now totally changed and I'm never going to be active again. And when I learned about adaptive sports and that I could still be active, it totally changed my perspective on who I was and what my life could be. And I realized I didn't have to be a different person just because of my disability. But I also saw so many of the barriers to getting into adaptive sports and learning about what's possible. So I wanted to start the Kelly Brush Foundation to break down those barriers and to give everybody the resources and the knowledge that they need to be active. And that's what we started. That was right after I got hurt. Within the first couple of months, that was back in 2006. So we've been doing this for nearly 20 years now, and we've been able to make an incredible difference. And we really are working in lots of different areas to break down those barriers to help people get active, because I know, and what we have seen for so many people is that sports, it's not sports for the sake of sports, right? Being outside, being active, moving your body has so many more benefits than beyond just the physical benefits. And that's why we do this. We do it to help the whole person so that they're living the most fulfilled life they possibly can. And we just find that sports is a really powerful way to do that.
So, Kelly, could you take us back a little bit to what type of injury you have? I see that you're moving your hands. Were you always able to do that? Could you just explain a little bit about the injury?
Yeah, for sure. So when I have a spinal cord injury, that's level of my spinal cord injury is called T7, which is about halfway down my back. Um, it depends where you break your back on what parts of your bodies are impaired, what part of your body's impaired. So if you break your back at the C level, so cervical level, which people often say of as like breaking your neck, oftentimes you have impairment in your upper extremities too, whether that's just your fingers, whether it's part of your arms, whether it's all your arms. That's going to make a difference. For me, I broke it a little bit lower, which was partway down my back. So I'm paralyzed from about the mid chest down. So my upper body hands all work totally fine. I don't have very many abs, so I can't control that. But I can use the muscles that I can use right down to about my mid chest. The thing about spinal cord injuries is they're incredibly unique. So everybody's injury is a little bit different. Some people get a little bit of recovery where they have some more movement or feeling below where they actually damage the spinal cord. Some people don't get any of that. And the saying goes, if you've met one spinal cord injury, you've met one spinal cord injury, because they're all totally different. But that's where I stand with mine. I don't have any feeling or movement below about my mid chest down.
So, and when you were recovering, you were doing sort of rehab that I guess felt like a physical activity. Was there a turning point when you saw sport not as just recovery, but bringing back joy?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was when I got on a bike for the first time.
When
So
did that happen?
that was when I was still in rehab. So this was 2006, and rehab was actually a lot longer stays back then. I was in the hospital for a total of 3 months. Now it's about average of 6 weeks or so, sometimes even less. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I think it's about an average of 4 weeks. Sometimes you're lucky if you get six. Mm. So I was there for a little bit longer, and I was in rehab and I was able to get on a bike. I got to a place where I was recovered enough that I could be mobile, I could be in my wheelchair. And they knew I was super active before, and they got me out on a bike. And that was that moment that I'll never forget, of going fast, feeling the wind in my hair, breathing hard, and realizing, wow, this is the same thing. I'm doing it a little bit differently. I'm doing it with my arms instead of my legs, but it is the exact same feeling. It brings the same joy. It has all the components that being active had before I had my injury. And that just led to this whole cascade of belief in my life that it could be that way also. And it just grew from there. So I was able to get a hand cycle when I got home, so I could do it at home. And the number of adaptive sports that I do now has grown a ton, and I love them all for what they are. But I was really lucky. You know, a lot of people either don't get on uh, adaptive sports at the very beginning, or they're not able to get one at home when they are home, and they don't even learn about that that's possible. And so you can get several years into having an injury like this and have no idea that that's even out there, and that you're just sitting at home thinking you can't do anything. And that's just so unfortunate.
What